And so I love wholesaling. It's, to my knowledge, it is the quickest type of a real estate deal that's going to bring you money the fastest. And so it's my favorite. It's my favorite kind. It allows you to, no matter what your other strategies are, if you want rental houses, if you want to be able to have capital to do fix and flips, if you want to buy notes, real estate notes, anything like that, then wholesaling properties can help you to get there so much faster.
I love multifamily. I love real estate investment. Team is very important.
Things will sometimes go wrong on real estate deals. It's just the nature of the industry.
We've considered investments together. We work with many of the same people.
And I'm forming, partnerships with people on all different levels, and it's a win-win-win for everybody that way.
Step by step, I planned out what I was going to do. I planned on going sailing, so I knew what I needed to accomplish, and I started that plan. Actually, in fact, I wrote a book, and it's called Dreams, Goals, and Adventure.
Aloha, and welcome to Deal or No Deal, Multifamily Real Estate Investing Podcast with your host, Michael Ditton. Our mission and vision for this podcast is to share the knowledge and stories of others to inspire and motivate those not only in their pursuit for success in real estate investing, but in their overall journey in a life adventure, and to help create abundance on every level of their life. This podcast is sponsored by Helios Capital Investments, shedding light on multifamily real estate investing.
Aloha, everybody, and welcome to Deal or No Deal, Multifamily Real Estate Investing Podcast. And today we have a special guest, Chris Strickland, a good friend of mine. And Chris and I have only known each other probably just this last year, and we've met through a couple of groups that we run in circles, same circles with. Chris, as I was going through his bio on that, I'm going to share a little bit, and then I'm going to let Chris talk about himself, because we all do that best. We talk about ourselves best. One of the things I knew Chris has been a big hitter in the real estate world, and I've got some of those numbers. What I didn't know is he's only been doing it since 2007. And I know that's a long time, but I look back at 2007. That's actually when I sold everything and took off and went. And now I'm back and starting all over again. So you've done amazing things since 2007. You've got over 1,600 properties under your belt. That's amazing. Most of which I believe were wholesale deals. You've trained people not only around the United States and Canada and that, but I see that you've touched base in Australia and New Zealand, Singapore, and other areas. That's incredible. And that's kind of how we started to meet. In fact, I think it was in a different training class when we first met, and now we work together on a pretty regular basis. A couple of things that I really like is your love and passion, not only for what you do, but your even bigger love and passion and desire to share that knowledge. And I know that you're a faith-based and family man, and network and community and all that's a big part of it. And that's, a heart-centered guy. And I love that about you. And I'm glad to call you my friend. And I want people to know a little bit more about you. You can tell us a little bit about where you came from and how you got to where you're at. And then we'll go into a little bit of the questions that we talked about. So Chris, welcome. Thank you very much for being here.
Michael, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And yes, I remember the first time that I ever saw you in one of our other groups when we first came across each other and everything. And I remember you were very quiet, came across as a very humble person and everything. And I appreciated that. And then as we've got to know each other through that group and now through this group, I see your heart. And when I hear you talk about the people that you work with and everything, just very, very apparent to me who you are and everything. And so thank you. That what you said about me means a lot, especially coming from you. So
thanks, bud.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's been great to get to know you, and I appreciate it because I think of you as a friend now as well. So thank you very much.
Good. I'm glad that's not one-sided.
No, definitely not one-sided.
Good.
No, I did. I started full-time back in 2007. The 3 years prior to that, I didn't know anything about real estate back going to 2004, I think it was December 2004 is when I started working for just a local real estate investor where I lived. And I was doing his marketing, his advertising, things like that. This is back before like social media. And I mean, we were using email, but that's, it wasn't much more than that at the time. And so I was doing his marketing and advertising for him, since that's what my background was out of college and everything. And, but I didn't know anything about real estate. And so I was able, during those 3 years that I was working for him, I was able to kind of look over his shoulder, right, and learn from him and get at least a little bit of a feel for how all of that worked and everything. And so it was a huge education for me. After the first year or so, he kind of took me under his wing and started, guiding me, giving me like real guidance rather than me just kind of watching what he was doing. And so I was able, during those 3 years, I was able to pick up 2 different rental properties and everything. And with his guidance and him kind of showing me how to do it without any money out of my pocket and all that good stuff. And then after working for him for a few years, I had an opportunity to basically partner with somebody that I had met that had some money, and because I didn't have any, and I had a pretty good source for finding deals. And of course, 2007, we were starting to see a lot of the foreclosures hit the market and everything, if you remember. And so I was able to put those two worlds together and me be the glue that started a business to put all that together. And so, so I had a good couple of years there, actually several years there, where we were just doing tons and tons of deals. And of course, that has spiraled and kept going. And like you said, to date, the reason I don't know the exact number is the very first year that I was in business, it was like a party. And so, and I'm not a partier, but man, it was a whirlwind. And so I did not keep good records. And so I don't even have all the records from the properties that we sold back then, bought and sold. And so I just don't know what the first year's numbers were, but I know enough to know that it's well over 1,600 properties. I estimate 1,650, 1,660, somewhere in there. And so anyway, yeah.
Impressive either way.
Well, well, thank you very much. I know people that have done a whole lot more, but it has been the best thing that has ever happened to my financial life. So it's just been great. Yeah.
Cool.
So that's kind of how I got started. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things you said, and we're not really here to talk about strategy as far as no money and what have you, but I have always, even before I got into the real estate world that I'm involved in now, which, running in circles with you and some other great people, where we do a lot with no money of our own. And we will talk a little bit about that. But back in 97, when I was doing it, I was actually doing that, but it wasn't the same thing. But I was doing it different through creative contract writing. Everything I did was for myself. I wasn't really working with investors I was helping them find properties as an agent, but as an investor myself, I was doing my own portfolio. And I learned how to do it with no money. But it's a whole different level nowadays. And it was a whole different learning curve. And that's where coming in and meeting guys like you, and we'll talk a little bit about one of the programs later. But you don't have to have a big bankroll to get involved in this business. And one of the things we were going to talk about is getting started as a newbie. So, if you got money and you don't have time, find somebody that has the knowledge and can get, that's kind of what we do. If you have the time and not as much money, partner up with that. So, what would you say to the newbies out there that really want to get into it, but are just thinking that they can't?
Yeah, excellent question. I think the thing that I've learned the most from my experience is that prior to me getting into real estate, and I would say I've had an interest in real estate probably since I was in high school. And so 20 years before I ever got started. And so I had that interest, but I always had that false belief that you did have to have money, or you had to know somebody that had money, one or the other. And what I found through my experiences with my original mentor is that that's certainly not the case. You do have to have some knowledge. So you either have to have the money or the knowledge. But if you have the money, you can buy somebody with the knowledge, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't have the money, then you have to put in the time to gain the knowledge.
Yeah.
And so you will have to do one of those two things. What I see it as people making a mistake all too often these days is that they will think that they can gain the knowledge and get rich by next Thursday. That's my favorite phrase. You can't get rich by next Thursday, right?
Maybe the one after, but no, not
maybe the one, maybe the one after. So if people understand that, then I think, and they have that long-term vision. Doesn't mean we can't do deals right away. I mean, I know people, and as do you, that can get in there and they can get a deal in their first 3-4 weeks of starting. Some of that's a bit of good fortune. Some of it's just determination, but it is possible to do that. So I'm not saying it has to take a lifetime to get your first deal, but you do have to put in the effort. And so as long and have that long-term vision of I'm going to learn the basics right now. I'm going to get started, but I'm going to have this long-term vision of what real estate can actually do for me. And as long as you do that and you don't give up along the way, then you can do whatever. So getting back to your question about newbies, if you have money, I would say buy the knowledge, right? Buy the knowledge and move quicker. But if you don't, then just buckle down and determine that you're going to learn whatever it takes to learn to gain the knowledge for yourself and get out there and do things along the way with, by just step by step, just getting out there and making things happen for yourself.
Yeah, totally agree with you. In fact, over the weekend, I was at an event, training my brain because I believe in it every single day. And I got a message from a friend of mine who has some life-changing events going on. And he says, I've always wanted to really get into this. He says, what advice could you have? And I actually had a call with him last night. And he said, I don't have a ton of money. He says, but I'd like to get involved. And, my questions to him were, do you know how you want to get involved? And he didn't. So we talked a little bit and I had him do homework to even see what it was that interested him. What was his passion? What was his desire? If there's 12 lanes to pick, which one do you want to pick? Doesn't mean you have to pick and stay in it, but you can't do all 12 at the same time. So, it was a good conversation and, getting that information, that knowledge, whether it's information that's out there, and you have to be careful on whose knowledge you're getting.
Very true.
But there is information that is readily available thanks to the internet. But I'll tell you, if you can pick a couple of good guys like Chris and Nate Armstrong and a couple of those, and you follow them, when they start talking about people, those are the people that you can feel comfortable about learning from. So, knowledge is power. And I do agree with you 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for saying that. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I like what you're saying. You do have to be careful about who you listen to because the internet's full of, it's got a lot of great things on it, but as all of us know, it's got some things that we should definitely be careful of. Yeah. But you know what? If you're out there and you're really plugged into some of these people, like whoever's listening to this right now, whoever's following you, they're heading in a good direction. And so, yeah, they're if they will listen to the people that you have on this podcast, then they'll be heading in a great direction for themselves.
Well, thanks. I actually I'm going to disagree with you about being rich by Thursday, because you know what? That person's financial independence may be a little bit different than yours and mine. Maybe they just want enough money to buy a candy bar.
Yeah, well, that's, you bring up a really, really good point. I did a deal. I don't know if you've heard me talk about this deal before, but is it okay if I share an experience?
Absolutely. I was kind of hoping you would.
Okay. So we bought this deal. It was just some land. It was 5 acres of land. This was probably 6 months or so ago. And the lady that was selling it, she wasn't learning how real estate. She wasn't getting any kind of, mentorship or anything like that, but she needed to sell this land. And when I asked her what her reasons were, she gave me 3 reasons. She said, well, first of all, I got this 5 acres in the divorce and I hate my ex-husband and he's right next door and I want out of here. Right. So that was reason number one, which for a lot of people, that's probably the only reason they need, right?
Good enough.
Is good enough. So that was reason number one. Reason number two was that she was fighting for custody of her grandson. And so she needed some money to pay the attorney. And then reason number three was she wanted a new car, right? And I say a new car. The car was 10 years old, but she already had the car she wanted. She already spotted it. She knew how much it was, and she wanted to be able to buy that car. And so we ended up buying this property, and we paid her just a little bit more than what we probably should have, but it met all of her goals. And it still met our goal, right? We would have liked to have gotten it a little bit cheaper, but it paid for everything that she needed. And so you're absolutely right. When you say it's all kind of in the eye of the beholder, you know, what their desires are and everything, she was so tickled with the offer and what it was able to do for her, because it got her out of that place. It was able to buy her that car. And probably most importantly is it helped her to pay the attorneys to get custody. So it really does depend on what somebody's looking for, right?
It does. And that's the one thing I love about working with you guys is the fact that, you know, not only do you provide service, not only are you true to the heart in that, but problem solvers. And basically she had something that needed, she knew exactly what she wanted, and she kind of knew how she could get there, and you came in and you made that happen. So, and I hear that over and over again. Basically, it's a solution-based business that we're in.
So true. Yeah. If we will just focus on the people and how we can help them, then a lot of times we're able to come up with that solution.
Yeah. Well, everybody wins in that case.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, we talked about, we kind of highlighted no money at the beginning, and yes, I did it different then than I do now. There's ways where you can get some investors and bring them in, but there's also, wholesaling, and, the lion's share of what you've done over the years is wholesaling. Tell us a little bit more about what that means.
Yeah. So out of those 1,600 or some odd properties, I estimate that probably around 1,300 of those were wholesale deals. And so I love wholesaling. It's, to my knowledge, it is the quickest type of a real estate deal that's going to bring you money the fastest. And so it's my favorite. It's my favorite kind. It allows you to, no matter what your other strategies are, if you want rental houses, if you want to be able to have capital to do fix and flips, if you want to buy notes, real estate notes, anything like that, then wholesaling properties can help you to get there so much faster. And so, yeah, I love it. It's basically probably, I know Michael, and I assume many of your listeners do, but just in case, it's really just, if you boil it down to its simplest terms, it is finding a really good deal, or I hesitate to even say the word finding, because it's more like structuring, right? Structuring a deal that is going to be really, really good, so that you can turn right around and share that deal with other investment buyers and everything. You are sandwiched in the middle. And so you become the wholesaler. You get the really good deal, you pass it off, and you get a little fee for having done so. And so I love those kinds of deals. They're probably my favorite. Now, if you ask me about any kind of other deal, I'd probably say that's my favorite too. But as I really like almost any type of a deal, but I've done more wholesale than anything else.
When we love what we do, we love it all. Yeah. But one of the things about wholesale, and when I got back into this, and I took a pretty lengthy vacation, about 12 years. I think you're familiar with that. So I haven't actually been back in. I just figure probably 12, 14, maybe 16 months I've been back into this.
Okay.
So when I came into it, I had a mindset. We're going to talk about mindset next, but I had a mindset that I had to do things a certain way in order to achieve my goals. And that way was, I was going to acquire X amount of buy and hold properties. And I didn't think outside of that mindset. So by getting the right coaches and mentors and opening my eyes, I was able to see things a little bit differently and realize that there's more than one way. And what I found out in partnering with you guys and using your coaching and mentorship and everything else, I have found if I'm looking for a buy and hold, and my goal is to do 4 to 6 a year, and I pass 7 deals a week, and I'm only picking one deal every 2 or 3 weeks or 4 to 6 a year, what would I do with the leftovers? Well, wholesale. If it's a decent deal and it just may not be for me, if the numbers work, I have a network of people that I know that may have an interest in it. So, I've learned a lot about wholesaling and included it. And thanks to the teachings of you guys, we met together in a live event in October. I took my 5-year plan. I have a 5-year and a 10-year, and I've compressed my 5-year down into 2 to 3 years. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without the coaching and mentorship and knowledge that you guys shared with me on how I can do that. So I actually have to thank you guys.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's wonderful. And that's the thing I love about real estate, is that if you do open up your mind to possibilities and everything, I don't know of too many vehicles out there, financial vehicles out there, that can help us to compress time like that. Right? I mean, most of us, most people, we go out, we maybe we go to college, but we go out, we get a job, and we start in that job, and maybe we're making, I don't know, $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 a year. And over the course of 10 years, maybe we've earned $1 million or something like that. Right? But real estate is one of those few avenues that we can take where we can compress time. We can take what could take us a 10-year time frame and compress it into a year or two, And so I appreciate hearing that. And I love that. So yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah. But it does take, knowing what you need to know. If you don't know it, you need to find it out. Best way to do that is surround yourself by, a lot of good people. You can do partnerships. There's a lot of different things. But you also have to be in the right mindset and open-mindedness to do that. And that's something, I love the little note that you wrote here, mindset, and you put in parentheses, something you and I share, you and I shared this love. And it's true, because you're like, when we were doing the program that we're working on together now for 12 weeks in a row on every Friday, that was what you shared with our group. And, that's what I do in my background. So explain to people what you mean by mindset and how it can positively impact their life.
Well, yeah, it is one of my absolute loves. I'm going to back up one step from that, because to me, success takes 3 things. And those 3 things are mindset, resources, and ability. Now, ability, most people have. They might not use it, or they might not even use it correctly, but they have the ability if they would just unlock it from within themselves. So ability, it takes that, but I'm going to kind of put that one to the side. But mindset and the tools. Now, the tools, the resources are things like what we're doing right here, knowledge, right? Sharing things like that. It could even be, if we were to dig deeper, it could even be having the right contract, right? So it could be just knowledge. It could be using the right exact tools. But those are one aspect. So those are one of the 3 legs. So ability, knowledge, and resources. But mindset is of equal importance. And I'll be honest, most people don't give it the same equal importance as the other things, right? Because I see people, here's what I see all too often. So you mentioned that I've had a chance to teach around the world, and I don't know how many classes exactly I've taught live in person, but somewhere more than 300 live in person events. And I have heard this scenario so many times. So I go in, I'm getting set up the first morning of the event, right? And I'll start to have people filtering in while I'm finishing my last minute setup and everything. And I'll overhear them talking. And one of the things that I hear, or used to hear quite often, was they'll say something like, well, I don't care what they tell me this weekend, I'm doing it. I paid a whole lot to be in such and such course, or to learn such and such from this person or that person, whatever. I'm doing what they say. And guess what? By the end of the 2 or 3 days that we're together, I'm getting excuses. I'm getting excuses like, oh, well, that won't work for me because of, or that won't work. I've tried that and it didn't work. Or an excuse after excuse after excuse. Now, some people will legitimately, and I put that in quotes for those that are just listening and not seeing me, but I put that in quotes. They will legitimately think in their minds that that's a real thing, right? That it won't work in their area or won't work for them or whatever. But that all gets back to mindset, right? It all gets back to either it will or won't. I was just speaking with somebody yesterday and they reminded me of the quote from Henry Ford. And I'm sure you've heard it, Michael, whether you believe you, and I'm slaughtering the quote probably, but whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right.
Yep.
So whatever's in your mind, if you are thinking that it will not work, then you're right. It will not work for you. Right. But if you believe in your mind, and sometimes it takes some time to cultivate our mind to get us into this way of thinking. But if you do get to a point where you believe in your mind that it will work, then guess what? It will work for you. And so you and I have both had success in real estate. And so it's easier for us. And I'm not saying you and I don't hit obstacles. I hit obstacles every day, right? And I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
But so it's not to say that we don't hit our own obstacles and everything and meet our own challenges at whatever level we're trying to attain to. But the reality is you and I have had some measure of success in this business. And so we know, talking about Henry Ford's quote, we know that it's doable, that it's possible because we have had that experience. But leading into that, we had enough of the mindset portion of things that was able to build within our minds that gave us enough belief to take action to lead us to the results that we got.
Yeah.
And so mindset's huge, and people don't give it the same credit as the knowledge, as the resources and ability and those types of things. But I would venture to say that it's the most important of those three legs.
It's funny that one of the last things you said was about taking action, and underneath ability, I wrote a line and an arrow, and I wrote action because you can have the ability, but if you don't take the action, it's just like wanting to win the lottery, but if you don't buy the ticket, you're not going to win it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different things, different types of excuses. Fear plays a big factor in a lot of our decision making, and fear can actually, it can paralyze you, but it can also motivate you. So fear is nothing more than your spidey senses or sensors telling you, hey, I've done that before and it didn't work quite right. So be cautious, or I've never done it before. So you might be a little bit, you might not have the confidence to do it. But quite honestly, our world wasn't mapped because people didn't jump on a ship and sail off and go explore. So fortunately, whatever fear may have been there, it was put aside so that we can continue to do that. And I'm that type of person. It scares the heck out of me. When I went sailing, people thought I was nuts. And as confident,
I kind of still do.
Yeah. Well, as confident as I was to sell everything, jump on the boat and disappear. I tell you what, one of the most scary days in my life was the day that we undid the lines and we waved goodbye to all of our family and friends, not knowing when we would see them again. We had really kind of left that life behind. So, but the rewards that came from that fear, oh my goodness. I mean, it's just phenomenal. So if you can overcome that fear and make it happen, and it might not be the direct path, it might be, okay, I can't get from A to B directly, but if you can overcome that and go, okay, well, maybe in sailing terms, if we tack and we go a little off course and then tack again and come back on course, we can get there. Funny thing is, I've always been a believer, things that happen were meant to happen. So quite honestly, if you tack and then you tack again and you hit the island right next to it, guess what? You were supposed to be there.
Yeah. Yes, amen. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
There are things that I have wanted so badly, right, in my life. And had I gotten it, I don't think it would have been the thing that was for me. It's something I wanted, but it's not something that higher power knew I needed.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I can attest to what you just said all day long in a number of different areas of my life. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, the fork in the road, and some
Yes.
of them are quite clear as we go back and we look at them, and you wonder what it would have been like if you'd have went left instead of right. But
Sure.
I'm glad I went whatever direction it was at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. Any any words of wisdoms for anybody that is listening to Deal or No Deal? This program is really geared around, it's part of the multifamily mindset that I have, but really it's real estate investing in general. And there are all these different avenues. And if somebody, we talked a little bit about, picking a lane, but what would you say about, like wholesaling versus multifamily versus tax deeds? How would you recommend somebody decide what it is, like my buddy that I talked about last night?
Well, that's a good question. I think before you can answer that question, you got to know, or they have to know what their goal is, right? What do they want in the final outcome? And then you measure that against what their current resources and knowledge set is, right? And so if your goal is to be able to, like the next 12 months, for instance, if their goal is to be able to generate X number of dollars per month, and they're starting from a point where they just don't really have any resources and they're just barely getting started in their knowledge category, then I would suspect in a case like that, we probably would want to start in wholesaling, because it's the easiest to get started in, it's the lowest risk, and you really don't have to have any cash to get going. However, if they're starting from a slightly different position, meaning they do have some resources, maybe they're sitting on an IRA that could be turned into a self-directed IRA, and they've got some cash resources, and their end goal is to begin to accumulate both cash flow and wealth, then I would say we might do a wholesaler deal here and there when they come across a deal that doesn't work for them, but might work for a buddy of theirs or whatever. Okay, wholesale it, make you a quick $5,000 or $10,000. But the focus is on finding those cash flowing properties, multifamilies or whatever fits their criteria, to be able to have that cash flow that's coming in, that also, while their renter is basically paying their mortgage payments, is building up their wealth, so that 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you can sell those properties, refinance them, whatever the case may be, and you really stack up the money at that point.
Yeah. And I wrote down on my sheet, it's amazing, these things that come to my mind, before we even got to this point, I wrote goal/plan, but more importantly, why? And I think, especially coming from a mindset guy like you and I, you got to have a why. And we've talked about this. In fact, you and I have it well documented why ours is, but tell people about why.
You're absolutely right. You have to have a why. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I shared with you and some of the others in our mastermind group what my why is. And is it all right if I share mine?
Absolutely.
Right now? So I'll try not to get too personal, and I'll try not to tear up, because when I tell this story, sometimes I do. But my why starts right at the beginning of my real estate career. I have to admit, when I very first got started, I didn't have a huge why, other than I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? I was just tired of being broke. And so that's what got me started in this. But my why quickly changed about 8 or 9 or 10 months into my business, when my dad passed away. My dad, we knew he was going to pass away. And it's not like I lost him at a super young age or anything like that. I was in my mid 30s, I think 34, 35 when he passed. And so when he passed away, suddenly my parents come from a very low working class family. My dad always made sure he had food on the table, but not much else, right? And so we just always worked. My parents always struggled week to week. And so when he passed away, I had started my business and we had started doing pretty well. And he got to see that. And I'm so grateful that he got to see those first few months of my business and everything. And so when he passed away, shortly after the funeral, my grandpa, his dad, came to me we were talking, and he said, I can go in peace. My dad said, I can go in peace because I know that Chris is going to take care of his mom. I know that he's going to have that ability to, because he got to see me doing something, got to see me getting a result. And that stuck with me for the last 15 years or so. And I think about that all the time. When I have a challenge, I think about it. And that's one reason that I'm heavily involved in real estate. I'm also, as you know, heavily involved in mentoring and coaching, but I also have other things, other businesses that I'm working in. And the reason, in fact, last night I was talking, my girlfriend called me around 9. She lives out of state. So it's kind of this long distance thing. She lives out of state, and she called me about 9 o'clock, and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm just finishing up some things at my desk, right? Just finishing up some work." And she said, "I knew that." She's known me long enough now to know that I'm always working. And so, but there's a reason behind it. That why is powerful for me. And my dad having the faith in me to say that as one of his final thoughts, that I would take care of his bride, his wife, my mother, it means the world to me. And that's why no matter what happens, whether it's in real estate or some other business, even if I had to go out and get a job as a midnight hotel clerk, I'm doing it because I'm going to fulfill that thought, that wish in my dad's head. And
No way you're going to let dad down.
Not at all. Or my mom, either one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome and very powerful. And thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah.
Absolutely. But that's my why, right?
Yep.
And so, everybody has their own, everybody has a different why, but you got to have a why. And you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah.
You got to have it, because that's what, sorry, Michael, just one thought leads to another, but that right there, people talk about shiny object syndrome a lot. Shiny object syndrome being, I'm going to go after this business idea. And then they go down the road a little bit and it's a little harder than they thought. So they go after this business idea. And then they switch and switch and switch and switch. Shiny object syndrome. Every infomercial comes on at midnight and that's the one I can do, right? But the reality is, when you have a strong enough why, it keeps you in the direction, in the course of the one that you chose. And that'll keep you going until you find success. Because any of these ideas that we have, real estate or any others, I have a firm belief that any of them can help us be successful if we stay focused on them long enough to see them through.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's what keeps me driven, and my why touches my heart the same as yours does yours. And I couldn't imagine not working towards making that happen. I mean, it's what I do and why I do it. And I'm very grateful for it. So
I love it.
Well, cool. So I'm going to throw a little different question at you. It may be very similar to the answer, may be kind of similar to some of the things that you share, but it's going to be pretty direct.
Right.
So, not that I hope this happens anytime soon, but there comes a day when, we're no longer on this earth. And one day that's going to happen to you, Chris. And I want to know, when that day comes, what is it that Chris wants to leave behind? What does his legacy look like?
Wow. That's a good question, Michael. I have given it a little bit of thought, but I'm embarrassed to say that I probably haven't given it enough thought. At the end of the day, I want the money is irrelevant. I'm not taking it with me. I would like to leave enough to my family so that they don't have to struggle. But even more than leaving the money to them, I want to leave them with the knowledge and skill set to be able to earn money no matter what life throws at them, right? So that's probably the number one thing. It is to be able to leave them with something that helps them to generate the money. And something that they are passionate about. I like real estate, but they may not. They may like something else. And so something that's going to generate them a good income and everything. But more than the money, more than the wealth, more than any of that, I would like for people to say that I was fair, that I wanted to help the person next to me, and that I loved every single person that I came across, even if they didn't love me back. But I just have that they feel like I had a genuine interest in them. And because I try to, I don't always come across that way. I've had people tell me that they thought that I was really stuck up and all these, arrogant and all these things before. And I'm like, really? I don't feel that way at all. But I think I'm shy by nature. I don't like, if you and I, we met at a networking event, right? At a live event. I am not the person to come up and be the first to shake somebody's hand. I am if I'm the leader. I am if I'm putting on the event or something like that, because it's kind of in the job description, right? I kind of have to. But if we just both attended as attendees and everything, I'm probably going to be the person sitting in the back corner, trying to mind my own business, not look out of place, all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean I don't care about the person next to me. I do. I'm just extremely shy. And so I want people, hopefully, to see through my weaknesses and to see that I really care for them. Yeah. And at the end of the day, if people felt that way, then I would feel good about my life.
I can't even envision you stuck up. I mean, I just know you're such a loving and caring and warm person. Maybe you're a little bit shy. Maybe they've taken that sitting in the corner as, too good for them. But given the opportunity to chat with you just for 10 seconds, they would know otherwise. So, yeah. Thank you. And if anybody feels that way about you and hasn't taken the time to learn about you, it's their loss.
Well, thank you. That's, I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. And as far as the legacy go, it's interesting. It is a question that I ask, and the answers I get are unique to everybody, of course, because they're all different. But the funny thing is, everybody that I ask that question to, their answer is pretty much the way they live life already. And it's like, if they were to go today, that legacy is already done.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you're doing all the things that you just said. That legacy that you want to leave behind, you're already doing it. So if you were to part tomorrow, hats off to you, man.
Wow. Well, thank you. That makes me feel very humbled and very good at the same time. It also makes me think, man, I better watch both ways for the bus before I cross the street, because maybe
I didn't put no mojo on you. You're good. No, I have no doubt that you'll be around for a long period of time, and I look forward to the friendship that we've just done over the last not even a year. I'm looking forward to growing that friendship, and likewise. We're gonna have a lot of fun over the next 5, 10, 15 years. So don't worry about that.
Likewise.
It's in my plan. That's
good. It's in the plan. It's got to happen.
It's in the plan. Well, talking about, goodness of your heart. You and I talked about this a little ahead of time. There is one I want to know how people can reach you. And we talked a little bit about that. And of course, everything we talk about right now will be in the show notes. But secondly, you wanted to give something from your heart to the people that are listening. So you want to share that?
Yeah, thank you so much. So as we talked about or alluded to earlier, I'm a full-time real estate investor and everything. And I love that. That is something that is near to my heart. It's changed the course of my life and everything. I also have a chance to teach real estate. Investing and everything. I work for a gentleman, you mentioned him earlier, Nate Armstrong. He and I he has a coaching program. He's brought me on to be his director of coaching and everything. And so he and I talked about this ahead of time. And for anybody that is serious about getting into real estate investing and wants to shave off the time. They want to really learn how to do this quickly rather than dabbling in it trying to learn it on their own for the next couple of years. Then we want to give an offer for them. And so if they want to check that out, then they're more than welcome to go to a link. And I think you could drop the link in the show notes or something. The link is simply All Access REI. So allaccessrei.com/start. Allaccess.com, allaccessrei.com/start. And again, in the show notes. But if they will go there, they'll see a special offer that Nate and I have put together. And we would love for them to check that out. If they have questions, obviously they can reach out on that website and everything and find out more. But thank you for letting us share that with them, because again, the main thing is to be able to shave off time. Yep. One thing that I have noticed in the world, and as we speak, there are a lot of other things happening in the world today that are a little unsettling and everything. And so, time is one of those things that we just never know if we have it or not. And so we jokingly talk about, the bus, and if I'm going to get hit by a bus today or whatever, I hope not. But if it happens, it happens. That's my attitude. I'm not worried about it. But we don't know. We don't know how much time we have. Just earlier this morning, I was bringing on a new coaching client, and he's an older gentleman. And he said that his grandson, who was in his early 20s, was going to be joining him in the coaching program. And he said, I've got cancer and it's incurable. I've gone through all the processes. It's incurable. He said, so what I want to do is I want to learn as much as I can. I want to get a handful of real estate deals under my belt, and I want to teach my grandson so that he can do this. And so I would say, if you're wanting to learn real estate, there are a lot of different ways to learn it out there. But if you're really wanting to learn real estate, then check out the website that I just gave, because it can help shave off time, right? It can help you get where you're going quicker than if you try doing it all on your own. My mentor, I don't know how many years he shaved off, but he had to have shaved off years, because it got me to do something while I was with him that I would have probably never done on my own. I would have studied, but never quite taken action.
Yeah.
And so, so please check that out if you're interested at all.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. And it'll definitely be in the show notes, and that website, they'll be able to reach out if they have questions as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we'll make sure that they have that down there. Well, we're at that time where I really don't want to stop, but we're going to go ahead and call this wrap. And I just really want to thank you for taking the time and coming on and sharing your story and sharing, just a sliver of that knowledge that you have, because, it's invaluable to hear other people's stories. And if we can, with what we do and what we share, we can make an impact on just one person, we've made a big difference in our life. And I know both you and I have goals much greater than that, and we've been able to achieve that, but I know we're not stopping there. So I do appreciate you taking the time and coming and sharing that information. And for everybody else that's on here, this will come out in audio and in video. So Chris is a rock star, not just because he's done a great, business and everything else. It's just the person that he is. So Chris, thank you very much for taking the time.
Michael, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's great podcast.
Thank you. Okay, everybody, for Deal or No Deal, multifamily real estate investing, we're going to call it a wrap for today. Thank you very much. Aloha.